Going into the playoffs, I was very confident in the Timberwolves' ability to win. Obviously, that didn't happen, but they did still manage to make it to the conference finals, further than most people had thought. And so, questions began to pop up about what the Timberwolves do next. Do they get rid of Karl Anthony Towns? Do they get rid of Gobert? Make another trade entirely? Well, diving into that question, I think it's time I do a rewind and reevaluate what became one of the most criticized trades in NBA history, and decide if Rudy Gobert deserves the criticism he gets, or if his negative feedback can be directed elsewhere. Looking at the trade to start out, at first glance it looks like an overpay by far, which led to a lot of the criticism in the first place. But let's dive into each asset that was given away. Malik Beasley, Leandro Bolmaro, and Pat Bev all aren't much to really cry about. None of them really contribute to what made the Timberwolves a championship team. What makes the Timberwolves amazing and what made them contenders and convinced me and others that they would take it all boils down to one word: defense. In the trade, the Timberwolves also gave up Walker Kessler through the draft and Jared Vanderbilt. Walker Kessler recorded 2.4 blocks in only 23 minutes compared to 2.1 and 34 minutes by Gobert, and Vanderbilt recorded 1.2 steals in 20 minutes. But of course, Rudy Gobert is more experienced and also averages 14 points, while the others don't even average double digits. Even if people, including myself, argue that Wembanyama was snubbed of Defensive Player of the Year, the fact of the matter is Rudy Gobert did win a 4th Defensive Player of the Year, being only the 3rd in history to accomplish this feat. Any seasoned GM, or even any couch GM sitting at home, would look at this trade and also take it in a heartbeat. An insane Defensive Player of the Year for 4 bench players that aren't in their prime? Easy. What makes this trade so bad for most people is just looking at it from the outside numerically. One player for 10 assets seems very one-sided before actually looking at the assets themselves, as we just did, especially when you consider the amount of draft picks involved. Anytime draft picks that are upcoming are involved in a trade, it's usually seen as taking an all-in approach. If the trade doesn't work, they have no more pieces to build through the draft, and also they have no more assets to make another trade to further build a team. This negative stigma is only further exaggerated when looking at all the times this all-in approach hasn't worked for others, such as the other Jazz player in Donovan Mitchell, DeJounte Murray, Dylan Brooks, Damian Lillard, and of course, the trades of KD to both the Nets and the Suns, and the massive trade for Bradley Beal. But once again, looking at it more critically, the 2024 draft is expected to be one of the weakest draft classes in recent history, with the Jazz having the 10th pick and expecting to pick Dalton Knecht. Also, the Timberwolves managed to make it much further than the teams that had made those other trades I mentioned, with all other teams missing the playoffs or losing in the first round, while again, the Timberwolves made it all the way to the conference finals. Again, defense is what it boils down to. During the regular season, the Timberwolves had the number 1 defensive rating, a whole 2 points above second place of the Boston Celtics that are also in the finals, and finishing as the 3rd seed. Prior to Rudy Gobert, they were only 13th in defensive rating and almost missed the playoffs as the 7th seed, remarkably winning the play-in over the Clippers, which is where this meme comes from. Jared Vanderbilt and Walker Kessler were not going to boost them to the 3rd seed or the best defensive rating. Rudy Gobert did that. On top of that, this team was built explicitly to beat the Nuggets, which they did, even when everyone doubted them, with Rudy Gobert even hitting signature shots over Jokic as a taunt. There's even a 25.9 differential when Rudy Gobert is on the court versus off. Well, if the Rudy Gobert trade makes sense and Gobert really does boost the Timberwolves up, well then what's the problem? Well,
Gobert's out there. Doncic maneuvers for the lead. Got it! Got it! What a shot! Dallas has taken the lead. Just what Reggie Miller said. Go for the win. But it ain't over yet. 3 seconds is a long time, and it's only a 1-point lead here. But that's just Rudy Gobert in an impossible situation.
Me voting this season for Rudy Gobert, okay, is an embarrassment for me for Defensive Player of the Year.
We just switched on the pick and roll, and I was on the ISO, Luka, and he hit a big-time shot.
As stated, this team's main goal was to beat the Nuggets, which they were built for, and they succeeded. But they weren't necessarily built to beat other teams. The Timberwolves do have amazing defensive players, like Ant, Mike Conley getting steals, and of course Naz Reid, Jaden McDaniels, and some others. But all of the players I named were already on the team back before Gobert when they were the 7th seed as mentioned. In adding Gobert, the team added height needed to take down teams like the Nuggets, as well as the Suns that they swept with KD, and potentially teams like the Bucks with Giannis and the 76ers. But in doing so, they left a vulnerability on the small end of the court where players like Luka, Kyrie, SGA could target. Even Devin Booker, despite the Suns' loss, scored 49 points on them. So then how did the Timberwolves fix this? Well, the problem with Luka's game winner in similar situations is not on Gobert. Again, Gobert works better against taller players, and especially in the paint. Luka explained it himself. He moves faster. Others joked, saying that he put Gobert on skates. But the problem is the matchup and the coaching decision. Because of that, for situations like these that determine the game, of course the instinct is to put the best defensive player on him, averaging 2.1 blocks a game. But athleticism tells us to get someone closer to Luka's speed, agility, and size. The best move would have been to put Ant or Conley on Luka beyond the arc and the other on Kyrie, and keep Gobert in the paint to double team if needed or prevent a drive that would send it into overtime. The Timberwolves need another quick, small, and defensive player. They previously had D'Angelo Russell, who had multiple 2 or 3 steal games against Luka. They also recently got Mike Conley, who does a decent job, but can definitely be upgraded. Many have made the argument that spacing needs to be added for similar reasons or similar situations. But given the performances of both Naz Reid and Jaden McDaniels from 3, I think that they're relatively okay. They do need another offensive option though, given how Anthony Edwards' fatigue was another massive problem for them. Many others have also proposed trades for Cat, but if they do that, then they revert back to losing to taller teams like the Nuggets. There's no way they trade Cat after making it to the Western Conference Finals. The biggest problem is contracts and salaries, with ESPN stating that they're headed for a quote-unquote financial cliff. But at the end of the day, if these salaries get a chip, then it's worth it, right? With all that being said, many were ready to give the Gobert trade a D or F when it happened. But looking back, I think it's fair now to give it a B+ or even an A-, with the Gobert hate being unwarranted. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments. If you want more content from me as well, be sure to follow me on Instagram, join the Discord, or support me on Patreon. All links are in the description below. Thank you as always for watching and supporting me, and I hope I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.
This is not okay. This needs to stop now.